Hello everyone, hello, welcome to this week's Weekly Wisdom. Bear with me just while I make sure this is working. Are we good? Yes, we're good. Okay, sorry guys, just making sure we were coming through nice and clear. Hi Miranda, hi Margaret, I hope you guys are all well. So obviously scheduling. This is obviously usually on a Wednesday, today's Tuesday, just because of a few conflicts with a variety of capacities. So thank you for joining me today. This weekly wisdom is about research wrap up, but it's a really interesting one this week, this month. And it's something that's really piqued my interest and something that's actually, I guess, re-motivated us to start a practice that we haven't used since before lockdown, ironically, because it's been so hard to get some of the components you need to practice this ritual. But when the news bulletin came out and started reading about it, really interesting. So today I just want to talk about what it is, what the research shows, and if you're keen, why it makes sense investing a little bit of money to getting an Agni Hotra kit and having a go at this, because it's fun, it's incredibly ritualistic. If you watched last week's Paleolithic health plan, we spoke about the evidence around the power of ritual and ceremony when it comes to a whole range of health variables. So Agni Hotra is a ceremony or a ritual that's got spiritual aspects, it's got health aspects, it's got familial aspects, it's got loads and loads of different bits and pieces to it. It's been used in Ayurveda for thousands of years, and it was kind of, I suppose, reserved almost exclusively for people who were living Ayurvedic lifestyles or who were living in Vedic or Indian cultures and things like that. Until the last 20 years, I suppose, where it's really exploded out into the Western, interestingly, the Western evidence-based arena, because of the impact it's been shown to have on respiratory health, upon antimicrobial health, upon preventing infections. So what is Agni Hotra? So you're going to need to stick with me as we walk through it and talk through it, because I think initially it can sound a little bit out there, but actually if you delve into the science, it's not out there. So Agni Hotra, so Agni is fire, the Greek god of fire. Agni is a clinical discipline in Ayurveda. Agni therapeutic Agni is where anything you're using that's supporting gut health, supporting digestive health. It's a real key clinical target. So when you're treating someone Ayurvedically or you're treating yourself, you're making sure your gut is working well is a foundation, and that's everything to do with Agni. So Agni it can be your digestion, it's anything to do with metabolism, fire. And Agni Hotra is a ceremony that's performed classically twice a day, in the morning and in the evening, and it's the ceremonial burning of dried cow dung. Okay, and bear with me here, I know it sounds a bit out there. Even moving beyond, obviously in India, cows have huge religious, spiritual, social, cultural significance. They're revered, esteemed animals, but the cow dung is an integral part of this, okay? And it doesn't mean you've got to go out in the fields, foraging for cow dung, because you can buy kits, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But how did this ancient ritual morph from a ceremony into a medical intervention? Okay, and we'll talk about the evidence in a minute, but you may have heard, it's nowhere near the level of Chernobyl, but something called the Bhopal Gas Tragedy, Gas Tragedy, which is a huge gas explosion in India, killed, countless people. There was a train station, huge gas depot exploded. It resulted in this massive release of really toxic. It wasn't just gas, it wasn't just butane or propane, it was a combination of really toxic commercial gas products, really, you're lethal. You breathe it in, you're dying. And it killed, I don't know what the final figure was, but it killed just countless people. It pretty much wiped out an entire town. It just killed a phenomenal amount of people. And yet there was a group, I think it was about 15 or 16 people who were right next to the explosion, who were completely untouched by it. So all around them, thousands of people were dying. And then right close to the epicenter of where the explosion took place, there were these several households, I can't remember the exact number, they came down with a few mild respiratory disorders, but they weren't really affected by the gas. What happened? That obviously piques a lot of interest. Why is it that 99% of people in the vicinity died and died quickly, and then there was these groups of houses that didn't die at all? What did they do? And the only consistency that they did, that compared to everyone else, is that they all religiously practiced Agni Hotra immediately after the gas explosion. So they went back into the house. They obviously shut their doors and windows like everyone else did, and then every morning, every evening, they practiced Agni Hotra. Okay, and then they survived. Over the next I think it was 7-10 days, as the gas levels dropped, as the air quality came back, they were able to go out and the full investigation took place. And then these 15-16 people were obviously subjected to this intense scrutiny. And then there was this, really intrepid researchers were saying, okay, the only thing they did different was they practiced this ancient ceremony. We can't just dismiss it. We can't just put it down to old wives' tales. We can't just say, well, it's Ayurvedic gobbledygook and there's no benefit to it. We've got to research if there's anything in this, because these guys survived when everyone else died, and this was the only thing different they were doing. Even more impressive was the fact that they were right in the middle of the explosion. This made international news. You can see cuttings of newspapers all around the world talking about this. So they began to research what actually happens at the cellular level, at the biochemical level, in terms of the changing in the atmosphere when you conduct Agni Hotra, when you burn, so it's dried cow dung, but it's also dipped in ghee, which helps it to light. So what they subsequently found is, because of the way the digestive process of what happens in a cow's stomach, cow dung is now clinically proven to be very, very potently antimicrobial. Okay, and there's all kinds of research. If you go onto PubMed or Google Scholar, you type in cow dung antimicrobial, there's all kinds of laboratory research projects underway looking at how we can utilize the healthy bacteria, the immune stimulating compounds, the antibacterial, antiviral compounds that are really, really heavily active in cow dung, and that speaks volumes. But when you burn cow dung in a inside space, it hasn't got to be sealed, or but in a house or in a room, the first thing is that it's a surprisingly nice smell, which is not what you'd expect. But the second thing is its ability to fumigate a room and to clear it of airborne and surface-based bacteria, virus, and fungi is profound. And there are clinical trial after clinical trial after clinical trial around the impacts of that process, those compounds being released into the air. And the bacteria that causes several of the bacteria that cause pneumonia, 2 of the viruses that cause pneumonia, rhinoviruses that cause most or all colds and flus, all of those, as much as they've been tested, have been shown to be vulnerable to the airborne volatile oils that are released as a part of this ceremony, and it can fumigate rooms up to 90%. Okay, so that research is clear. So that was then, it dialed down a bit after the Bhopal, the gas tragedy. And then with COVID, researchers picked it up again and said, okay, well, if this process is now clinically proven to kill bacteria, to kill viruses, to fumigate and sterilize rooms, is there a role in it as a prevention, not just against cold and flu, but also SARS, also COVID viruses, things like that? And whilst that research is ongoing, what the early preliminary evidence shows is that it is able to impact upon the way viruses replicate. Okay, and this is what I find so exciting, and this is why we put it in the research wrap up today, because this is new stuff. Is how does, so say you go out and you go to Costa and someone coughs and it's a rhinovirus and you end up with a really bad head cold, or you end up with a flu, or even worse, you end up with COVID or something like that. What's actually going on? Well, so you breathe the virus in, and what the bacteria is alive. A bacteria is a living organism. A virus isn't alive. A virus is a parasite. So a virus can't survive on its own. It can't survive outside of a host. It needs a host to replicate. How does it replicate? By its cell membrane. It has a cell membrane that, well, not a cell membrane, it has a viral membrane that allows it to attach to and replicate when it comes into a lung cell or a nasal cell or something like that. Why does soap, or why does hand sanitizer, or why does heat destroy or kill viruses? Why does washing your hands in soap kill viruses? It kills viruses because it damages, it breaks the membrane of the cell, which stops it replicating. Okay, and what this research shows is that when we perform Agni Hotra, when those antiviral, antibacterial compounds within the dried cow dung are released into the environment, any viral cells or bacterial cells that come in contact with those compounds, the membranes is damaged, and that has to have an impact upon the ability of viruses, bacteria, potentially COVID, being able to replicate on door handles, on tables, on drinks, on your skin, even in your respiratory tract. So at this point in time, what the evidence shows is that in really, really acute settings, like the Bhopal Gas Tragedy, where everyone died except the people who were practicing this technique, we know this is effective. When it's been tested against airborne bacteria, pneumonia bacteria, we know it's effective. The preliminary research is showing it's probably going to be effective for seasonal flu viruses and for COVID SARS viruses. And I think also looking at the effects of it in just generally cleaning environments. If we think, sage burning, smudge sticks, they're really popular. Loads of people, I'm sure there are people listening to this who've used, burnt sage or burnt herbs, to clean rooms or to fumigate rooms or things like that. And the impact of these kinds of processes on keeping our house free of fungi, particularly in winter when the air gets central heating is on, the windows are shut more, there's more bacteria, viruses and fungi in the environment. Performing Agni Hotra, I think, is a really profound way of keeping our environment clean and free of all of these nasty pathogens. So I kind of hold my hands up in a little bit of ignorance here, in that I've known about and used Agni Hotra for as long as I can remember. And I knew about the research from the Bhopal Gas Tragedy because it was quite famous in Ayurvedic research and medicine. But I didn't know it had the potential to impact upon things like SARS and COVID as much as perhaps it does. So it's been a real eye-opener for me delving into this and reading about this in more detail. And I think if it was April, May now, maybe it's not as relevant. But coming into October is around the corner, autumn and winter, we're about to move into it. I've said before on the Mentor and different places that this winter really concerns me more than last winter, because last winter there was just COVID. We were in isolation, there was just COVID. Now, routine surgeries are happening, the seasonal flu is happening, seasonal colds are happening, COVID cases are going up. We've got lots of things happening together, which I think is going to put more strain, more burden on us, on our immune system, on our health systems. And I think taking care of ourselves this winter is probably even more important than what it was last winter. So all of the content on the cold and flu prevention series, if you're new to the Mentor, we've got a whole series there about the evidence around preventing cold and flus. But I think this is a really interesting addition. And for some people, it might fall into the too hard basket. For others, it might be something that you do once a week. For some people, it might be something you really enjoy. And my experience of it is that when you've got the time, it's a very, very, it's a meditation. It's got all these benefits, but it's a ritual. And like I said last week, in the Paleolithic program, rituals are now clinically proven to do all kinds of things to our health and our well-being. And this is a pure ritual. It only takes 5 minutes. It doesn't take a lot of time, but in classical settings, Agni Hotra is always performed twice daily. So it's always performed roughly around sunrise and roughly around sunset. I can't say that that's something that we've done because that's quite demanding. We're not living in an ashram. Sometimes in lockdown it's very doable, or whatever. But in normal life, maybe not so essential. But trying to, if someone in your house has got a bad infection or a cold or a flu or sinus infection, then you might do it more often. If not, you might just perform it a couple of times a week. If you really enjoy that side of things and you have a morning routine which has got things like meditation practices or chanting or yoga, adding in 5 minutes to perform the Agni Hotra is something that should be really, really achievable and really, really doable. And the thing that's made it even more doable is that you can buy Agni Hotra kits. Okay, before they were really hard to get. You don't need to use a kit, but it's the shape of the reciprocal, I suppose, that you place it in impacts upon how much of the smoke is diffused into the environment, which is quite a key mechanism. So if you go onto Amazon or you go onto the line and type in your Agni Hotra kits, you'll see they're really available. You can buy the dried cow dung patties. Okay, they're all sterilized. There's no issues around health and safety and things like that. And it's a pleasant aroma. It's not like what you would think it would be. Okay, because this ghee, you can add herbs into it. A lot of the time it's burnt with frankincense essence, which gives us this beautiful incense smell. So there's lots of ways of doing it, but I'm not saying obviously everyone's got to go out and do this, but I think it's very unusual it's very, very common for clinical Ayurvedic practices to be dragged into the evidence-based arena. We speak about it week in, week out in the mentor, this herb, that practice, etc. But for the more of the ceremonial practices to be really held up in the spotlight of clinical medicine is really unusual. I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen it, and this is one of those times. And for me, it's really given me the motivation to reinitiate this, because ironically, when you needed it the most, during the height of the pandemic, you couldn't get the Agni Hotra kits. You couldn't get the dried cow dung. You couldn't buy the kits. You couldn't do it, which is essentially why we stopped doing it. But now they're easy to get. There's more of them available. This research is probably going to make a bit of a shortage again because more people are going to be buying them. A bit like diesel and petrol, dare I mention it. But I think if you're interested in taking the Ayurvedic lifestyle and these kind of really symbolic approaches into your life, it's a beautiful practice. Something, I know in some of the other sessions we've spoken about fire meditation. We've spoken about how calming fire is, and because this produces a beautiful little flame and not too much smoke, you can use it as a meditation aid. I think for me, fire goes right back. Fire meditation is believed to be the first form of ritualized meditation that our species ever conducted in. Because of that, we genetically programmed for it. So I think we relax. There's something inherently calming and very, very meditative about staring at flames and fire. And this Agni Hotra gives you the meditation, it gives you the ritual, it gives you the cleansing, it gives you the antimicrobial benefits, all wrapped up in one. So it's a really beautiful practice. And if you're intrigued, if you feel like upping the Ayurvedic lifestyle a little bit more, I'd really encourage you to have a look and have a play with it. We're actually going to do a live, not today, but we're going to schedule a live practical soon, where probably next week or the week after, where we'll do it, and I'll set up the camera and I'll go through the process and kind of the classical ritual of how it works, so you can see it in real life. But it's simple, it's quick. Once you know how to do it, it's effortless. Hi Deborah. No, it doesn't. Does it leave much dust around where you burnt it? No, because the Agni Hotra, it's like a square copper dish. It's really deep, so all of the ash is contained in the bottom. So there's no mess at all, really. But that ash is also very, very evolved, very, very therapeutic. Because that ash has been subjected to, again, equally robust chemical analysis. And the antimicrobial makeup of Agni Hotra ash is kind of like a whole nother area. I won't go into it now because it's a big digression, but you can use it and you can add it to compost. There's a lot of Ayurvedic medicines in not so much in the West, but in India and Sri Lanka that are made out of the ash of Agni Hotra, which are blended with other herbs, particularly herbs like gugulu and guduchi, and are made into like a resinous medicine which you take internally for respiratory health, immune health. How they knew 2,000 years ago that the internal oral use of that would stop infections, which is what chemical medicine is now, biochemical analysis is now proving. I find that fascinating. So Deborah, it doesn't leave much dust. It doesn't create mess. It doesn't kind of leave a lingering smell or anything like that. It's really it's quick and easy. Okay, so that's a bit of a novel one. It's kind of, I suppose, a bit different to some of the things we've spoken about in the past, but it's really piqued my interest, and I just love it. I love it when these ancient approaches are validated by really, really pretty cutting edge Western research. So if you're intrigued, go online, check out the Agni Hotra kits. You can get them on Amazon, you can get them on Etsy, you can get them on all over the place. And if you want to have a go, buy one, give it a go, because I think if you engage with it in the way it's designed to be engaged with, which is as an unrushed ritualistic self-care practice, it's an incredibly transformative one. It's right at the heart of Vedic ritual and Vedic ceremony, so it's a great one to have an experiment with. Okay, so if you do have a go, and obviously as a community, it'd be great to see what your kit looks like. It would be great to see it in action. I'd love to, if you do use it, I'd love to hear how you find it as ceremonially speaking, emotionally speaking, in terms of the practicalities. I'd love to, because it's an intriguing over the years we've seen people have quite abstract responses to it in terms of kind of things like meditation and seeing colors and all kinds of slightly out there responses in a good way. So if you do engage, I'd love to hear your experiences of it. We're going to schedule a practical demonstration of it, like I said, as soon as we can, so we can demonstrate that, but we'll let you know when that's going to happen. So other than that, if you have any questions about it, do let us know. And then any questions, like I said, let us know. We will see you all soon. We're live tonight as well for the final installment of the Paleolithic plan, which should have been last night, but we had to reschedule that as well for the same reasons. And that'll be we're gonna do a summary conclusion of the Paleo plan, and then we've obviously got the chakra series starting next week, and we've got the Alzheimer's prevention plan also starting relatively soon as well, which we're super excited about. So lots of good content coming up. But any questions, let us know. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you all soon.